Hello there, this is Shawn1113 podcast show. I am your host, Shawn1113. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, wherever platform you may be listening to. There's couple new ones I have this week called Good Pods. There's one, and then there's Spreaker as well, along with Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify itself, and many other platforms. Wherever you're listening to, thank you so much for listening to the Shaw 1113 podcast show. Now, if you like to inquire or contact me, it's Shawn SHAWN 47K at gmail.com. That is Shawn 47K at gmail.com, or leave a voice message via Spotify for podcasters.com as well. Now, with that, a lot of things still going on. Premier League season going on in soccer. Speaking of soccer, though, the U.S. women's national team has gotten a lot of things. I'd rather not talk about Megan Rapinoe because people have talked about that enough. Megan Rapinoe, in my opinion, does give me the ick factor, the ick factor, in my opinion. But I'm going to actually talk about the head coach of that team. His name Balako Andronovsky. If I'm staying correct, let me know. But my goodness, it turns out he's not a very good head coach. See, your good team is your team is only good at your coaching at times, and this Andronovsky guy did not get the job done. Clearly did not get him. If when you score 4 goals in the entire tournament, that's not good coaching. And the U.S. women's team has dominated for the most part in soccer for the Women's World Cup. But this time wasn't even the case. It's just they were so worried about their political activism, than their soccer. But I'm going to let that fall on the head coach here because he did not get the job done. They should have been further along, scored more goals, got more goals than anything. But it wasn't enough to get him. They barely made it a knockout. They barely made it to the round. It's just a reflection that this was not a very good soccer team. And I will put it on the feet on not only Megan Rapinoe, but the head coach, Balako. If I get it wrong, like I said, Andronovsky. And that's my opinion about that. A quick update on the person who had surgery for cancer. He did have surgery and made it through. I haven't heard anything else on it, but he did make it through. So thankfully, thank you for your prayers and your thoughts and stuff. And on that one. So I want to get a quick update on that briefly. Now, let's move on to the college football shuffle. The musical chairs, that is. With Oregon and Washington going to the Big Ten, it blows my mind that now the Big Ten is the most powerful conference in college football. Because by doing all this, the Big Ten, would you say is now the very first super conference in college football? Would you say that now? Or even over the SEC, as great as the SEC is? I believe Big Ten has become the most powerful conference in football. And the first real super conference in football. Think about that for a second, just so you know. And speaking of that, Major League Baseball season continues. It's gotten things interesting. Very interesting. And I'm looking at the standings right now. But like I said before, I mean, there is so many races right now, especially in the National League. There was a as of this recording, there was a no hitter by the Phillies last night. Last night, as a matter of fact, so I'm looking at it right now. It's like Baltimore is running away with it, and a good in the American League East. Then I'm looking at the Central. Minnesota, I'm predicting them to win over Cleveland. Texas and Houston going back and forth. Atlanta should be able to shouldn't collapse. I mean, look at Philadelphia. Atlanta should win the East pretty easily, pretty comfortably. The best race is probably the NL Central with Chicago Cubs and Milwaukee and Cincinnati, 2.5 games in front. And then the West, the Dodgers by 6 over San Francisco. Arizona slipped. Probably the biggest disappointment still is the San Diego. With all the money they had, the San Diego Padres, in my opinion, is probably the most disappointing team in the league. With all that money, with all the money they spend, and they're 55 and 60 at this time in 13 games behind 500. And although they are 4.5 games on the wild card, oh, well, I don't know. The wild card standings, Houston and Toronto and Seattle begin to catch up as well. Then Miami in the National League and the Cubs. And said that's going to be very interesting. Like the National League is going to be very interesting in MLB, in my opinion. Now, let's get to the preseason Shawn steals. This is the first one. Top 10 college football rankings for the first time ever. As many of you know, I will be doing college football picks this year from a place called NFL PIckwatch, starting in late August for NFL and college football as well. And I'll put the link in the description to that. But it's coming very soon. So coming sooner or later, sooner enough. So my preseason top 10. Number 1, Georgia. 2, Alabama. 3, Michigan. 4, LSU. 5, Ohio State. 6, USC. 7, Penn State. 8, Utah. 9, Tennessee. And 10, Clemson. And that's my preseason top 10. I'll put that in the list below as well for my top 10. And that's all I got to say. That this is the Shawn1113 podcast show. As I say again, if you like to contact me, Shawn47k at gmail.com. That's Shawn47k at gmail.com. Or go to the voicemail message on Spotify for podcasters.com. And with that, thank you so much for listening. And please stay encouraged no matter what.